Our lives are busier than ever. Work, kids, home, vacations. It's just life. Life is in constant motion. Sometimes you don't get a chance to stop and take a breath. The lifestyle you enjoy takes income. But if something happened to you and the income stopped, what would happen to your family and the lifestyle that they are accustomed to? We love our family. We want to take care of them. No one wants to leave their family a financial burden. Life insurance is the key. And most Americans don't have enough life insurance to protect their family. Life insurance can provide income for final expense, your kids' college education, and maintaining your family lifestyle with mortgage payments and monthly income. A lot of people think life insurance is expensive, or they are so busy they don't have time to take the next step. Today, on the Caregiving Doctor Show, life insurance, the do's and the don'ts, what you really need to know about life insurance. That's today on the Caregiving Doctor Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Caregiving Doctor Show today. Today, we have a great show planned for you, a lot of great information. We're going to be talking about life insurance. Life insurance, you know, a lot of times we don't want to talk about life insurance, but it's inevitable. Today, joining me is Lewis Harper Jr. We're going to be talking about what is it, answering all those great questions. Thank you for being here today on the Caregiving Doctor Show.
You're welcome. My pleasure. It's a great opportunity to be here today.
Now, how long have you been in the life insurance business itself?
Started in May of 1973.
My. Great. Well, thanks for being here today. Let's talk, I just want to get this out in the beginning. Why don't we want to face the fact that we need life insurance? And why isn't it sometimes a priority?
Well, my father was a life insurance professional during his lifetime, and he used to say, many people buy what they want and beg for what they need. So you said the key word is the priority, where life insurance is on their priority list. A lot of people buy life insurance. That's why the companies have so much money to pay all these claims. A lot of businesses buy life insurance in huge amounts on key employees. But people who buy and keep life insurance is high on their priority list. And I could tell you stories of people making menial income and prioritizing life insurance and it coming through to do the job that they bought it to do.
So, at what age would you say we need life insurance?
Well, the younger you buy life insurance, after you become a young adult, the younger you buy life insurance, the better, because everything's still on the table usually, because you buy life insurance not only with money but your health. So if usually your health is at the best when you're young, and there's a line of insurability that everybody will eventually cross. When they cross that line, they may become uninsurable, or the offers that they have are limited.
But we're living so much longer now. I mean, we're living to 80s and 90s and 100 years old. So how much life insurance do we need?
Well, that is a good question, and it varies per person. But it does cost a lot of money to live.
What do you mean?
So, well, what I mean is life insurance helps replace lost income. So if you multiply, say, $30,000 per year or $40,000 per year for 40 years, well, you're talking about, maybe $1 million or so. But life insurance is used to help pay or relieve the financial burden that death brings. Without life insurance, the family estate is responsible for final expenses and all debt. With life insurance, the home mortgage can be paid off in full, thus eliminating probably the largest debt. Life insurance can be used to replace lost monthly income to help continue to pay car notes, the upkeep of the car, credit cards, food, utilities, education for the children. So the question is not, do I need life insurance, but what kind of life insurance should I buy?
Well, what kind should we buy? Does that vary based on age? Because you got term out here, you got all these different types, whole life, universal. What kind should we buy?
That's
I mean,
right.
should you be looking at a different policy as a younger person versus if you're 65 and up, and so hopefully you have it before then, but what kind should we buy?
That's a good question. You named basically all of the different types of insurance that's available for the average family person. Whole life, term life insurance, universal life. When you buy a life insurance policy, you want to know what's the end game of that policy. Will that policy expire at a certain age or around a certain age? What needs are permanent? A permanent need is final expenses, to pay final expenses. So a whole life policy is the best plan for final expenses because that's a permanent need. We can buy term insurance to cover some temporary needs because term insurance is temporary coverage. And actually, after the initial term, see, term is for a term period, such as 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. And whatever that initial term period is, that term policy is designed to end at the end of that initial term period. It says renewable term, but actually it's not doable because to renew that policy is going to go up to an unsustainable rate. Now, if you're still in good enough health to
What do you
go
mean?
back
You're
to
talking about, excuse me, you mean you're talking about a term.
a term policy.
So if you
now.
live past a term, say you're 70, you're 78 years old, and then your term runs out, then what?
Okay, you want to have known that when you bought the policy. So many people don't know that when they bought the policy. And they're going for the premium and the amount of insurance that they're getting, and they're not thinking about anything else. So you have to evaluate everything. You have to think about if you live a long time, because if you're 65 years old now,
Right.
statistically you're going to live until you're 83. The average person, if they reach age 65, they're going to live 18 more years. So you have to keep that kind of thing in mind. There are some real good products on the market now. Now, I'm an independent agent, so I'm in a unique position to help clients where some people are tied down to one company. We are not employed by the company. We're independently contracted, and we can study the different products that companies have, the very good companies we can contract, and there are some niche products out there now. There's an alternative to term, where at the end of the term you have a better option. You can continue to pay the same premium, and the insurance reduces, but it's still a great value for the age you'll be then. And there's another niche type product is the return of premium term, the cash back term, which you can get all the money back that you put into that policy and use it to buy a reduced amount of paid up whole life insurance that'll be paid up. You don't have to pay it anymore.
Okay.
So we can do a lot of things. We can go in and evaluate the person's needs, and then we can make a recommendation. But always, if you're buying insurance, you need to know what you're buying. If you're buying a term policy, when is that policy going to expire? Do you need some whole life insurance? Do you need to talk about one of these products that's going to give you something new?
So the average cost of a funeral now is about how much?
Okay, according to the National Funeral Directors Association, the average cost of a funeral, including the embalming and a metal casket, is about $6,600. And then the cemetery services, including the grave site and the vault, is another $3,000. So you're looking at around $10,000 average.
Now look now, because I'm really talking to family caregivers as well. Those of us who are taking care of mom and dad, and we have a whole lot of things that we have to do to be able to make sure mom and dad their wishes are acknowledged. when you're talking about taking care of mom and dad, as caregivers, we need to know this information.
Right.
Oftentimes, we don't know what mom and dad, what they have, or they're secretive about it. What are some suggestions as caregivers? If we're caring for someone right now, we should know where that policy is, what the face amount, and what
Right.
else? We should know where it's located.
Right.
What are some other things? I mean, we should be able to execute what their wishes are. And oftentimes, I'm finding that families are having to take up a collection. They're having to go around and ask the church, the community, for $2 and $3 and thousands of dollars to bury their loved one.
Right.
So we haven't talked, I'm going to bring you back at another time, but we haven't talked about just a burial policy, just enough to be able to have your loved one put
Very
away.
important.
How important is that?
It's very important because without money, everything stops.
You need to say that again. Say that again. Say it one more time.
Without money, everything stops.
Okay.
I had a call from a bereaved son-in-law,
Okay.
and they didn't have insurance, and the body was at the funeral home, and he wanted to know what could he do, and that was his plight. Everything had stopped. They didn't have insurance, and they didn't have money. So it's a sad situation, but too often it does happen. But they, the caregivers should know whether or not their loved one, their parent or their grandparent, is actually covered. And if they have enough, if they only have $2,000 or $3,000, they need to know. And there are great policies on the market now for people who are elderly and who have pre-existing medical conditions. Many pre-existing.
What do you mean? Like what? Arthritis, heart disease?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about diabetes?
Diabetes, heart surgery, cardiovascular disease, strokes. These people, if that incident was at least a year old,
Okay.
they're getting back into where they can get a policy that covers them from the first day. People who have COPD, if they haven't had to use oxygen to assist in breathing within the last 12 months, they're getting in the area where they can get a first day coverage policy. But people who are on kidney dialysis or have cancer, internal cancer, receiving chemotherapy and radiation and so forth, those people can qualify for what we call the modified death benefit. And the modified death benefit is what you hear on TV when they're talking about no health questions asked, you can't be turned down. Well, now that's a modified death benefit you're going to get. And that means that the natural death benefit is not in force for the first 2 policy years. It's modified. The death benefit is modified. That means that they will return all premiums paid plus 10% interest. But what I'm saying is that many people can qualify for the policy that covers them from the first day. But if they just buy one, they may be buying into the only plan they're offering. And so some people could qualify for a better plan. So they need to call an agent, an independent agent, and let us look at it and let them know what they can get, because we have companies that are offering these liberal underwriting rules, and they're offering policies at great prices where a person with no medical conditions, it will be hard pressed to get it lower.
Okay, see, I got a call the other day. Her mom she's taking care of her mom, and she's 85 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And the question was, she's 85 now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But in the back of my head, she could possibly live another 10 years.
Right.
But she has no life insurance policy at all. And the family really, they're not in a position to be able to bury her should she pass away.
Mm-hmm.
So in a case like that, is there an age cut off for a burial policy or a life insurance policy? Is there a cutoff age?
Most of the companies that I have will write insurance up to age 85. And I have one company, a very good company, will write up to age 90.
90?
Right.
For a burial policy?
Yes, for a burial policy, whole life.
Okay, let's summarize some things, what we just talked about. Let's summarize the importance of life insurance. For those who just joined us, you're listening to Lewis Harper Jr. with the Harper Agency, and you've been in business for about
42 years.
Yes, and we are talking about life insurance, the importance of life insurance. You talked earlier about getting it early, getting it when you're young. It's cheaper, right?
Right.
And also, it's never too late to get something.
That's right.
So what do you want to stress to family caregivers, those of us who are taking care of mom and dad, and what are some key points we need to remember?
Many times I get a call, and the people want to insure their parent or their grandparent.
Okay.
And then they want to get together and pay the premium. I always suggest, usually one person steps up and say, I'm going to buy life insurance and I'm going to put it on my checking account and pay it.
Okay.
If you're going together to do it, I usually suggest that each person buy what they are going to pay for, because that eliminates the procrastination and so forth. And this is important. We need to take action. And also, you want to take action because preferably you do not want to go to the funeral home with a policy that you just bought.
What do you mean?
Just think
Explain,
about it. Just think about it. A new car,
Okay.
a new house, that's good, you know. But a brand new life insurance policy that you need to use right now, you just bought it, things are going to go much smoother if it has at least 2 years on it. Even though it's covered, you covered from the first day, the life insurance company knows it's going to take longer to pay. I mean, so the funeral home knows that it's going to take longer for that policy to pay off, because they're going to ask for medical records during the first 2 years if you die. So if you get diagnosed with say kidney dialysis, don't wait until you've taken kidney dialysis for a year or two to get some insurance. Go ahead and get it now. But now is the best time if you hadn't bought it before.
What are some common tests that people may have to undergo? For example, when I took out a policy the other day, I had to have blood work. Mm-hmm. They took my blood pressure. They wanted my urine. They wanted all this stuff, and they had to stand up on the scale, which I hate that, of course. You know, anything with weight, I hate it. But what are some tests, or is there age-related tests that they may have to take, or are they looking at, when they took my blood pressure, she was like, oh, your blood pressure is pretty good. So are they keying in on key?
Now, the policies that we're talking about for older people, the final expense policies, there's no medical exam required with that. It's just the answers on the application, and the company checks prescription drug history and the Medical Information Bureau. The Medical Information Bureau is a storing house of information that insurance companies have compiled on people applying for insurance.
What do you mean?
And put it in one source there. And insurance companies can go and they can pull it and look at that. So those are the two things. They're not issuing those policies blindly, but they know those people have pre-existing conditions. So if they accept that policy, they're gonna pay it. They're gonna pay the death benefit.
So regardless of diagnosis, but a younger person in their 50s, 40s or 50s.
Okay, for that, because of the amount of insurance you're buying.
What do you mean?
A physical
the face amount on the policy?
Yeah, the face amount of the policy. That usually starts at $100,000. If you're getting a fully underwritten policy with a very favorable, you're trying to get the most favorable rate, then a physical exam would be required.
And I'm going to ask you another, this is a loaded question. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Leaving your family, the Bible talks about leaving an inheritance for your family. What are you finding out here with families who talk about, I want to leave my son and daughter a large beneficiary policy that they can receive after I'm gone? For example, you may be 52 years old and you may say, I want to leave all my children at least $50,000 apiece. What are you finding out here? What are people saying? Are people just looking at themselves and just getting enough to be buried based on what the economy is doing, or since it's a matter of priority? What are you finding, the motive is what I'm asking, the motive for getting such a large policy? What are you seeing out here, since you're out here in the community on a regular basis?
Well, now, love is the motivating factor for buying a life insurance policy, because life insurance is for the living.
Say that again.
Love
is the motivation.
Right.
Explain that.
It's the motivating factor, because life insurance is for the living. If I love my wife, then I want to leave her life insurance money. If I love my children, my grandchildren, I want to leave them something because I love them. And many times women have to get remarried and they rush into it because of financial burdens. And we don't want that.
What do you mean? What do you mean financial burdens? You talk because we're widowed, we're left alone now. When men dying before
Right.
women.
Right. And a woman could be left alone at a time in her life where she has a lot of financial responsibilities, and that might make her choose badly or rush into her next relationship. My father died when he was 63 years old. My mother was 59. She lived to be 83, and she never remarried. He left her well taken care of with life insurance.
Should people hold on to those policies on their exes? I mean, for example, if you're divorced, I mean, are you finding that they're holding on to those policies on that ex-husband or?
If they want to keep the policy, they can do that. It could benefit them over the years.
How young would you say a policy needs to be taken out? How young? We talked about how old, but
well,
how
actually,
young?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. We need to insure our children because that is the final expenses are still expensive, and we may not have that money laying around. So we need to insure our children for at least $10,000 or $15,000, and children need to be taught early prudence and being prudent and wise with their money, and buy life insurance. Life insurance has living benefits. It builds cash value. If you borrow money out of a life insurance policy, put it back. Treat it like it was a loan. Put it back so that you'll keep that policy intact to do what you bought it for.
Well, let's talk about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and it's priorities. I have young parents that come to me and they say, well, I don't have enough money to have my child covered, but we can buy other things like tennis shoes, our hair and our makeup and our jewelry. And when you ask them, do you have a policy on your child? On your child, you may have one or two children. A lot of times they don't see the need. What can we do to emphasize the need, getting it younger, which is less expensive? Is that a family value thing or what we consider as important? But if we get it cheaper, like I did my children, it's pennies.
Right.
To get a couple policies.
Right, and I do have one company that's offering life insurance, whole life insurance at a very, very, very low rate for children. You can get $20,000 for about $10 a month. You can get $10,000 for $3 and $4 and things like that per child. Or you can get a children coverage rider. We cover all of the children until they're 25. But we can do something, and we can fit it into our budget, but we have to prioritize. And we have to put the insurance on a high up on the list. And we have to be determined to pay it and not skip the premium.
Skip the premium.
Because if you skip the premium one time, you're paying 30 days behind, and your grace period is only 30 days. You can't skip it again. You got to pay it every month.
All right. Talking to all the family caregivers out here, those of us who we're taking care of our loved ones because we love them, and we want to make sure. In my case, I want to make sure that my mom and my dad, that they are put away with dignity and respect, and they deserve that. No matter what has happened, I believe our parents deserve to be cared for, and life insurance is really important, that you can put your loved one away and you don't have to assume all the caregiving debt that one may leave a truck or a house unpaid for. And I'm just an advocate for that because I work with families all the time in crises. So as we wrap up the conversation today, what would you say to those of us particularly who are caring for aging parents, mom and dad, grandparents, paw, mama, whatever, whomever that may be, who should do it, and does it matter, and why should we do it?
Well, like we've been saying, it's an enormous debt. Yes. It's an amount of money that we need now. We need at the time of death, and death is like taxes. We have to deal with it, and it is coming. So we need to prepare for it. We need to prepare for it. I know some people who worked with a menial income, but they kept their insurance, like I was saying before, and it did the job. I don't know if I have time to tell this story or not, but two sisters raised their families together. They were without husbands. They had been married, and they raised their children together. The sisters bought insurance, the final expense plans first, and then when they bought a house, they bought a plan to cover the mortgage. One of the sisters died, and the other sister continued to raise the children in the home that they bought. All the children are grown now, and it was because they knew life insurance was important, the reason that they were able to meet those life-changing critical situations with the money that they needed.
Well, thanks for being here today on the Caregiving Doctor Show. You know I want you to come back and be more detailed about term insurance, the pros and the cons, the advantages and disadvantages. But also I want you to come back and share in general and share more stories that you're seeing out here in the community. Thank you, Lewis Harper Jr., for being with us today on the Caregiving Doctor Show. Hey, you can find out more information on the caregivingdoctor.com. I'm also on Facebook. We're going to be on television as well as radio. Hey, join me next week again for some great information. And you got to remember that I'm caring for you and your loved ones too. See you next week. Thank you.
The Caregiving Doctor Show is brought to you by the Caregiving Kids Academy, Little Leaders, Big Hearts, Lewis Harper Jr. and the Harper Agency, Sandra's Clothes Closet, Caregiving International Church, and the Caregiving Kids book series. Join us next week for another informative Caregiving Doctors Show.